Welcome, like I said before. And those three cool cats are some of the people on our executive team. Um, we are, we don't need to look at that. Legal disclaimer, if you could just take a moment, take a snapshot of this if you like. Real Estate Wealth Lab, we do not provide investment advice. It is instead what we are doing is we actually provide forward-looking information. And it is what we as a team, because we are all in the game of real estate investing, because we're all here and we're in the game of investing. Here's how we are approaching investing, and we share that knowledge with you in the hope that it will inspire some of you, help some of you. You do need to consult your own licensed qualified professionals before you move ahead. Now, do ask questions, say hi, engage. Sometimes at the end of our meetings, we open up the mics and we just chat. Be respectful. Do not solicit or sell. This is being recorded and it's available for you as a rule member in your member portal. This event is called the Rules of Real Estate Investing. And we, on these events, once a month, we look at a couple different things. We look at what's happening in the real estate world. We look at leadership training as a real estate investor. So today I'm going to be doing a presentation on more on the leadership side. And after that, Vincent and Lewis are going to comment on what is happening in the real estate market using our proprietary AI. So stay tuned for that. This is the soft launch. So one of the things that I realized as I looked at people and as I hung out with people on this call, as even in the mastermind groups that we did last year, Terry, you'll remember this. It seemed to me that we were all, if you're showing up on this call, you're not normal. You're a little off. You're a little weird, different. You are not happy with the way things are. And there is something inside of you that is driving you to make your life better, to change something. And it almost feels to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, throw it in the chat, but it feels to me like most of us are feeling like we are being pulled in multiple directions to do all kinds of things, but at the same time, not being able to manage everything. And it seems like everybody is looking for information. I was in a webinar put on by McMaster University. I did my master's degree from Mac, and as such, I have access to certain alumni training. And his name is Diego Forte, I believe, was making a presentation. And in that presentation, what was interesting is he said that years ago, the amount of social media and information that we are presently in engagement with is equivalent to 13 hours of reading from the past. It is equivalent to reading War and Peace every day. Now, we all know we're not reading it, but we're bombarded by that level of information. And it is no wonder that we feel like we have to do more and that the world seems to have somehow gone mad. So I thought that what I would do is I would actually pause at the beginning of the year, being that this is our first real call for rule. I thought I would hit the pause button, and before we madly dive into real estate market and you guys start buying apartment buildings, houses, or trailer parks, Terry, or something like that. And if I'm calling out your name, I'm not calling out your name. It doesn't mean you're not important. It just means I can't see you. There's only my computer screen is only though a certain size. So what I found is that we are being pulled in different directions, and I decided, or we actually as a team decided, we needed to hit pause and help all of us kind of get grounded so that we really create the world we want. I mean, Lewis, You told us, I think it was about what, almost a year ago now, when you said you wanted to purchase X number of doors. Was it a
Yes,
thousand?
1,000.
1,000 doors. And what's the commitment you made? I hope you don't mind me throwing you under the bus here. What's the
Not at
commitment
all.
you made to yourself that you would refrain from? What's the cost that would drive you until you got there?
The cost was, uh, a wine or a beer with dinner, social drinking with friends. So I'm sustaining from alcohol until I have those doors, 1,000. So that's a challenge I put up to myself.
And Lewis is doing it, right? And what happens when you do that, Lewis, I notice is that since you made that commitment publicly, you have all of a sudden, I don't think it's so, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I know you well enough. We hang out, and it's not so much that you can't wait to get back to your next beer. It's that the stand that you've made is driving an agenda that everything you do seems to focus towards a common direction.
Absolutely. It
Okay.
has, and to be honest, Naran, it has nothing to do with the 1,000 units. The person that I have to become to achieve that is going to be a totally different person than when I started this goal. That's the win.
That is exactly the win. That is exactly the win. Well done. So, um, what I want to do today is I want to focus in for a few minutes on how we are managing the most precious resource we have, which is time. Money you can lose and you can find. Time you cannot. Once you've lost it, it is gone. Now, before I get going, I want to give a shout out. I call this wisdom credit because who I am is a result of a lot of different people that have spoken into my life. But I want to pause because of this presentation. I've kind of drawn on my own experience, but it's also there are about 4 or 5 people that have really influenced the way I've shown up here. So I just want to shout their names out. David Allen. If you have not read a book by David Allen, you should. There's one called Getting Things Done. He's known as the GTD guy. And David Allen and Stephen Covey. Stephen Covey wrote books like Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. These two gentlemen, the content that they created in their books was foundational for the way I approach time management. And then you've got Richard Dolan and our own executive team member Ken Klinaftikas. The and the reason I put them there is because Richard is able to I've see that there's head knowledge that you get from people, and then there's wisdom you find when you watch somebody else in action that affects the way you show up. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if it does. Awesome. Richie is one of those guys because I've worked so closely with him. I've watched that, and Ken is an operational nightmare, man. He will just operationalize everything, and and I've watched him, and in the watching of him, I've been able to make tweaks and changes in my own life. So anyway, now why am I uniquely qualified? A lot of people can talk about time management, but I want to give you a one small perspective of the way I approach this. 17 years ago, I was riding a bike, a motorcycle that looked very much like this. It was a Kawasaki Ninja. It was red in the front and blue and white as well, but this is the only picture I could find. 900cc bike, and I was sitting at a red light, and I ended up getting rear-ended, opening up a windshield of a minivan with my head. As a result, I ended up with a brain injury, and it took about 8 years of my life for me to come back into it. But one of the things that it affected was my ability to process information. So I actually had to learn how to read again or process information, written material from a grade 3 level on. And at the time of my accident, I was getting ready to do my PhD. So, I could pick up a book and read. But one of the areas that my brain injury affected was what they called executive function. the ability to look at something and be able to say, these are the things that are important. This is what I need to execute on. And this is the process I need to follow. In fact, after a whole bout of testing, there was a doctor, her name is Dr. Moore out of Toronto, sat me down and told me that I would never, ever work again, that I was not ever going to get my executive function back. And so what I did is I really needed to double down and work at bringing this back. And so the things that I did before my accident, which took place naturally, I now had to set up systems to help me. And so in that process, I started to learn management of resources like time and executive function. And so as I've kind of morphed into this person, as I've gotten better, a lot of my presentation is driven or is colored because of my accident. Does that make sense? Now, the number one question when you come to time management is not to look at time. But Lewis, you touched on this earlier, just a few minutes ago, about who you become. Who do you want to be today, and what is the role that you fulfill in that? Often, when we approach time management, we look at it and we think that we've got to be this person or that person, or there's multiple things pulling for our attention. And what ends up happening when you start chasing all the things that pull our attention is that we don't actually get to become who we're called to become, if that makes sense. We don't get to become who you already are internally. So, and then what happens is that you start feeling bitter and angry, and burnout takes place. The other thing I've noticed is that when you look at your own life, you will also notice that certain things will demand more attention from you. And if left to their own devices, they're the ones that will win the day. Instead, what you've got to do is choose for yourself, what role do you want to show up as? And what outcome are you choosing? And why is the outcome for each role important? So, what do I mean by roles? It means that I play a number of different roles, and you all do. You may be, let's say, you have a full-time job. That is a role that you fulfill. Often when I'm outside, you'll see me wearing a hat, a fedora, or some kind of a hat. You'll see it on my IG. And sometimes when I put on a hat, it changes the role for me of how I show up. The During COVID, uh, people used to laugh at me because I would come downstairs to the basement and I would have no meetings. I was going to sit on a computer and do work. I would still get dressed up in a suit and down to like dress shoes. Why? Because it put on for me a role that I was playing. And within that role, I got to choose what the outcome I was looking for. Now, so the step one, so if you are looking at managing your time, especially as a real estate investor, I want you to grab a fresh piece of paper and I want you to follow along so that you actually have the experience of working through this in real time. And we will go through this very quickly. It's very high level. One, you've got to choose your role. And in choosing your role, I would not choose one because there's more than one role that you play in life. And don't choose 27, even though I'm looking through my people here and a number of you have do lots of different things. So I want you to choose just three roles. So for me, I would choose things like, well, I'm a full-time real estate investor. That's one role I play as a real estate investor. Another role I play is I'm a coach. Another role I play is I'm a family guy. I have a family. I have extended family. That's a role I show up as. Um, Another role I play might be a sport, or I'm really into training dogs with my German Shepherd. Like I'm into some crazy stuff. That's a different role I play. What I'd like you to do, just take a moment right now and on a piece of paper, write down three roles that are the most important. And I know some of you are going to say, yeah, but what about this and what about this? I'm like, for example, I'm a musician. I'm a backyard musician. I play guitar. I play violin. I play multiple harmonica. I play different things. So it's a different role. But if you choose too many, the time management piece becomes overwhelming to do, especially if you're starting. If you choose just one, what ends up happening is that you end up being dragged down into one role a little too much. So I want you to choose three roles. Once you've chosen them, I'd like you to choose one outcome that you want for this year. Now, normally, if we had the time, I would have you recommend that you choose three outcomes for each role. Okay, but right now, choose one outcome. So let me play along with you right now. I'm going to choose my role. I'm going to choose it as being a real estate investor. What's the outcome I want? Or you know what? Lewis is the real estate investor, and he's already told you that the outcome he wants is to buy 1,000 more doors. Now, I don't know what his outcome is for this year. I'm a coach. I coach people. So maybe one of the things that I want to do is I want to say, I want to change, really, really impact 5 clients that I work with closely for the next year. That could be an outcome that I'm looking for, right? Um, Terry, that might be for you to buy a trailer park because that's an outcome that you've spoken about before. Wendy, that might be for you to duplex another property because you are the duplex queen. So whatever role you choose, write down one outcome that you want right now. Okay. Then the next thing to do after you've written the outcome is to come out with what I call a list of action items that you can do to create that outcome. Now, in creating that list of action, it is like massive, it is huge, it is uh, you blue sky the actions. You do not prejudge the action. Do not get into how am I going to do this or how am I going to afford this or this is too crazy. I won't be able to do that. I want you to be childlike in your approach. I want you to make a mess. So, um, if Lewis, for you, I'm picking on you because you're right there on the screen. If it is to buy another 50 doors right away, maybe your list now. Here's an interesting problem, a dilemma. Guys like you and I, and those of us who are in the real estate world, the moment we go, we want to buy 50 doors, we have a process already locked into our mind. We know what path to follow. We know what phone calls to make. We know we got to get the financing set up. We know how to structure the stuff. We know what kind of deals we're looking for. And we are very quick in following the process. That's what comes when we become good at what we do. But here's the dangerous side of that: we get stuck on a pathway. So every now and then, what I like to do is pretend I know nothing and throw my pathway out the window and start all over again and create a mess by creating all the different ways of ideas that you can come up with. Because what happens is that's where creativity and new ideas live. You get off the normal pathway that you normally drive. And you start bringing in other ideas. I have also found that when you have an outcome you're looking for, go to people that you would least expect to have ideas and ask them. Ask your kids. Ask people that are not in the field because they will think outside the box, and out of a bunch of ideas that won't work, one or two will be golden. You want to write these down and create a massive action list. Then, this is not a step, but this is a sidebar. Take inventory of, in other words, and sometimes I will do it very, very quickly, like within 5 seconds. Or if I'm really stressed, I need to sit down and take half an hour to do this. Take inventory of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and what you're capable of executing on. how easy is something. The reason for this is because some of us, when we look at an outcome, we're doing it and we're feeling the stress of our work or stress of accomplishing something. And when we approach it with that negativity spin, it's in a different mindset. Whereas if you approach it from the perspective of what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, what is easy for me to execute on, we now then can look when we go to the next step now, when you know that list of actions that you had, when you we're going to take that list of actions and you're going to create an ordered process out of it. But you want to approach the ordered process from the perspective of your strengths and your weaknesses clearly defined. Because what that will do is that will help you define what you the list of the mess of ideas that you've got or outcome of ways of doing it. It will help you categorize them, and it will help you actionize what you do first. Does that make sense? I'm going to pause for a minute. Does that make sense? Nima, you're with me? You good? All right. Now now until this point, I find entrepreneur types are really good. We love doing a process, we love doing something different, but then here's where the rubber meets the road. You're going to have to make a commitment on which actions you are going to do, because it does not matter whether you want to buy another property, you want to coach 5 other people or 50 other people. It does not matter whether you want to buy 1,000 doors or one door. It does not matter what you want to do, what you hope to do, what you would love to do. The one thing that matters most is the action you create. What you do matters, and the doing starts with a commitment. When you commit to the actions, when I've got a whole pile of things to do and I don't know how to choose, I actually have a system for choosing what I will do. And there are 3 drivers that cause me to choose what action I'm going to do. One driver is money. Is this going to make money? That's a driver I look at. How much money is it going to make me? The other driver I look at is impact. Is this going to create an impact? Because for me, I'm not in business just for money. If your business is not making money, you've got a hobby. Okay, money is like you've got your business has to make money. However, I want to be able to create massive impact in people's lives. And if I'm not doing that, then it's out of alignment of my internal moral compass. So I'm looking at when I do something, is it going to make money? Is it going to create an impact? And there's another third thing I look at. How can I do this with ease? Is this easy to do? Do you remember, Nima, do you remember Office Depot or Office Place? They used to have this ads where they had this like a thing that they would hit, and the voice would say, "Well, that was easy." Remember that way back? Well, take a look at your list of things, actions that you want to commit to, and ask yourself which of these are easy to do, and do the ones that are easy whenever possible. Because what happens is you create this thing called momentum, and momentum is contagious. You don't feel stuck. So look at your list of actions so you created out of the goal, out of the outcome that you want, categorize them, define them, and then commit to a series of them, organize them by time, but most importantly, look at what action is going to create you, what's going to be easy to do, what's going to create impact, and what's going to create money. And you will see certain actions rise to the surface to crystallize it. I think in one of our mastermind or one of the training that I did with some of you, I actually showed you a spreadsheet where I would actually look at the action and I would rate it 1 out of 5. Is this going to be easy? If it is, I'll rate it 5. Is it going to make me impact? And if the impact is kind of middle of the road, I'll go 3. And then at the end, if it's going to make me money, and I'll categorize it 1 to 5, I'll add them up in an Excel spreadsheet, and whichever got the highest number, those are the ones I execute on first. After this happens, after this happens, you've got to put it in your calendar, because the calendar is where your commitment lives. You've got to put it in your calendar, and you've got to commit to it. You've got to believe that it can be done, and you have to have assessments. You have to be able to assess what was done before, what you've done. Now, some of you cool cats, I know because I've coached a few of you. I know that what you will do is you will create the whole list of actions, you'll put it in your calendar, and when your calendar tells you to do something, you're going to move it around. Catherine, don't smile. Because Catherine knows I move stuff around on my calendar. But at the end of the day, if you are not acting on it, you're just talking about it. And if you don't, and so a couple of things I want to mention here. When I first started putting things in my calendar, I had this feeling that somehow I was no longer being creative and free, that I was being a slave to my calendar. And I realized that I was thinking about it all wrong. A calendar and accountability and commitments you make to yourself is not so that it enslaves you, but so that you get to actually live life and spend your time on the things that matter the most to you. It is actually a freeing mechanism. Discipline allows you to live a freer life than non-discipline. So when you look at creating your action, sometimes it's difficult to step into that action because the action you've created feels foreign to you because you've never done it. It's supposed to feel that way, because if you're doing stuff that you've never done, you're going to be behaving and creating actions that you've never done before. Here, you just need to act. Act until you become who you are. And in acting, there are 3 things that you need to keep in mind: accountability. So often, I will hold myself accountable. I really hate it when I don't keep my word to myself. And I will have other people that hold me accountable. If I don't have other people, and I don't mean somebody I can, on a hierarchy of competence, I want to make myself accountable to people that are more competent than I am. Otherwise, it's like playing tennis with a 3-year-old. You can always out-talk, out-push your way around. Make sure that the person you make yourself accountable to is capable and competent enough to hold you accountable. Secondly, do something creative in your action, because some of you entrepreneur types are the creative type. And when there isn't creativity, you feel like you're being pushed into a box. Create some level of creativity around the action. So it could simply be like, sometimes when I need to do the things that I hate doing the most, like emails or paying bills or organizing small tasks, I don't like doing it. What I will do is I will go to a coffee shop and I will sit down, get myself a cappuccino, and just because I want this feeling of creativity while I'm doing it. And the third thing, and this is, guys, Wendy, you will probably get this, because I think you and I may be wired a little bit similar in this way. So don't do what I do, do what I tell you to do here. Here's what I mean. When you have finished an action, make sure you treat yourself to something, just something little. I am very poor at pausing long enough to celebrate something. I'm on to the next. But if you can discipline yourself enough to stop and just do something a little for yourself, it will actually create a feedback loop in your mind that will help you execute the next task better. Um, Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of my presentation, but I want to tell you something. I can see the future. I can see the future for my own life and for all of you. What I need to see the future is I need to see how you spend your time, your money, and your attention. And if I want to see how you spend your time, I need to look at your calendar. If I can see how you, if you don't have a calendar, if I can calendarize your actions, I know what's going on. Secondly, if I want to see how you spend your money, I look at what sacrifices you've been making. And if I want to see what's got your attention, because I look at what is influencing you. Because what you give your attention to is what will influence you. And what you sacrifice will show up in your finances. And the way you spend your time will determine the future for you. So, if you need some help, I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to, if you want to, I'm going to pause for about 2 minutes. If somebody has a question or a comment, please put your hand up, and we'll bring you in. We'll do it very fast because I'm conscious of the time. But if you do need some help in organizing your year, do not do it alone. If there's one thing I would do differently when I started in this real estate world, is I would have brought on a coach to help me long before I did, because it makes you move faster and more precisely. 5 cool cats on this slide. You can engage with any of us. Okay. All right, Maureen, I see that your hand is up. Could somebody just unmute Maureen for me?
Just
Yeah, go ahead, Maureen. Oh, you're still muted.
Can you go, would you please go back one slide, because I wasn't finished making my notes on that one and I can't remember the last 3 words. And can you just do a quick synopsis of what that inventory was? Because I was kind of lost in what you were saying. You should be in your inventory.
Inventory. Even I'm lost. I forget stuff as quickly as I say it. Is this the slide you're looking at?
No, one, go forward. No, you're going backwards. I want you to go there. Calendar sacrifice influence. Thank you.
I'm not quite certain what you mean by inventory, Maureen.
Remember when you had your slide up and you were talking about inventory? You mentioned take an inventory of your own
your strengths, weaknesses,
and that kind of stuff, but there was other things in there that I was missing.
This slide right here.
Yes.
Yes. Take inventory of your strengths. Oh. And of your weakness, and how easy is something to execute on.
So if I take, okay, got it. So I guess that means like whenever I figure out, okay, my weakness is I hate paying bills, using that as an example because you brought it up and it's in front of mine. That means to create a team or to help me, or just to recognize it and say, okay, this is something I have to work on.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Let's say you hate paying bills, and let's say that you are consistently late on paying bills. I'm not saying you are, but let's just pretend that that's what's happening. This is something you're ignoring. So
Right.
when you take inventory and when you have your list of actions, one of the things is to pay your bills. But you know that you do not like paying bills. It's just something you hate doing. So you know that that's a weakness. So immediately in your action items, go, how can I make this creative so that I do? Well, maybe you can have an accountability partner. The second thing you can do is set a time and pay your bills first. It's called eating the frog principle.
Yep.
Do what you hate first sometimes.
Okay, thank you. That makes it clear. Appreciate it.
All right.
Rand, can I add my 2 cents to that same
Absolutely,
slide?
Lewis. I'm just going to bring you in. Go for it.
So with the strengths, weaknesses, and the executability.
Lewis, can I just ask you to speak up just a little bit more? I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing. I know you're coming in from Colombia, I believe.
Absolutely. So with the strengths, weaknesses, and executability, that slide is so critical for me, because the way I interpret it is that if I'm coming up with a system to, say, purchase real estate, like you had mentioned, that system that I've come up with now, is it going to work in every type of market? So when I get to that slide and I'm going to look at my strengths and weaknesses, I'm going to assess that system and I'm going to see if it works in different market environments, which is critical, because I don't want to get caught in, if it's buyers, sellers market, is the interest rate going up like it is, and you're stuck in a burr that cannot be refinanced now. So assessing that slide in your strengths and weaknesses, and say a purchasing system, is critical, because you'll know beforehand instead of getting caught too late. So thank you for that.
Oh, absolutely, Lewis. And what you can actually do is, when you look at it, you can actually categorize your action items or your executable actions there under different economic parameters.
Yes.
So in a market the where the interest rate is going up, let's say that, right? In that type of an environment, you can actually have a certain list of executable actions and a process for that, which would be different if the market was shooting up,
Right.
right? So awesome. Let's move on in the interest of time. Oh, by the way, if this is your first time at REWL, or you are not, you're here for our free event, welcome. You can show up at our free event once a month. But if you would like to become a member, there are 3 different tiers: $9, $49, and $99. So if you're brand new, jump in at the $9 one. It'll give you access to some online information. It doesn't give you access to our other calls, but it does give you access to our online information and some workbooks and things like that. But if you are interested in actually moving ahead in real estate and you're brand new, I would recommend you do the $49 a month. At $49, you get all of that, plus you get coaching on a weekly basis on how to invest in real estate. If you look on the bottom here, my cursor is, you've got a picture of Wendy Bradley and myself. Wendy's the one that's really spearheading it. Wendy will be teaching a course starting, I believe, next week on how to invest in real estate if you're getting started. So if you are brand new to real estate, or you got one property and you really don't want to make a mistake, you really don't want to lose your shirt in this business, which can happen, make sure you get the help. And it's $49 a month. Jump in for 3 months, and it will really change the trajectory of your life and how you show up. If somebody could just throw in, our email address. So if you can scan this QR code right now with your phone, and it'll take you to our sign up page, or just email us at info@realestatewealthlab.com. Okay. Now, these are all different things we have, but I'm going to move right ahead into our next section. And Vincent, you are going to take over for me here, are you not? And I'm going to stop sharing.
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
All
good?
Good.
Awesome. Well,
Hi, sorry, I saw a buddy of mine in the room.
All good, all good. Annalisa, can you present the slides, please? Perfect. Let's go to the first slide there. So I'm going to actually call in some folks to chat about some of these ones. So the first one, Canadian new home prices stall. StatCan makes baseless bullish price forecasts. And this was in Better Dwelling. And it really said that Canadian real estate had been experiencing a slowdown that was finally beginning to manifest in the form of reduced new home prices. So we're definitely seeing that already. So they revealed that the home prices actually decelerated for the 9 consecutive months. And what's interesting is they actually said in that article that it might actually go up, but they don't know why it would go up or what the reason would be. But it might. Something might impact it where it could go up. But indicating that higher interest rates and decreased sales were likely the factors behind this trend of it going down. Investors are becoming less able to leverage their capital due to cumulative effects of these changes, and it appears like this is a downward trend that will persist. So there will be little immediate relief for this situation. Something like this, you know what, I actually want to bring in a realtor who's in this space and in this call. Is Ken around to speak to this for a couple of seconds? Is Ken available? Oh, he's mobile. Okay, you know what I'm going to bring in? I'm going to bring in Keith. Keith UT. Let's unmute Keith there.
Hey, Vincent.
Hey. What's your thoughts on this one, Keith? Are you seeing that downward?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like they wrote an article that's already manifested itself. It's not a prediction. It's really just an analysis of what's happened as a result of, the rising interest rates caused a slowdown in the biggest markets, Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver. However, when you look at places like, a place like in Alberta, Edmonton, Calgary, the problem isn't the interest rates. The problem is supply. Our number of listings are down so much that's causing the problem of sales being down. So it's important that when you're looking at stats for real estate, you got to look at more than just number of sales, benchmark prices, things like that. I look at the sales to listing ratio. That's an important one for me, and days on market. Those are indicators of what's truly going on in the real estate market, especially when you have a situation where there's just not listings for the demand of buyers that are out there, especially here in Alberta. And that's even in some cases in Toronto. I had a client just last week. He went to bid on a triplex property in Toronto, and it was in bidding wars at around the 1.2 million mark. And he lost out because he wasn't willing to put a condition-free offer in. He wasn't willing to do that. So when you look at those types of things being out there, that's, you've got to consider that when you read these articles, is that truly what's happening, right? Or is there other factors involved? So, interest rates. Yeah, you know what? Fixed rates right now, are on high ratio rates. They're just about 1.5% lower than where they peaked on fixed rates. But now we've got an inversion. So we've got really what looks like an X in variable versus fixed rates. The variable rates were way lower than the fixed for the longest time. Then they got closer, they met, and now they've gone the other way. And variable rates are significantly higher than fixed rates are. And so, this is why it's important that you understand how the different interest rates are determined, fixed versus variable, bond yield versus Bank of Canada. There's so many different factors there. And so people who are like, well, I only want to use a variable rate. Well, that variable rate's going to impede your buying power right now because the qualifying rate is 2% higher than what that variable rate is. Whereas the fixed rate is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1.5% lower. Well, that's a significant amount of buying power that you could be leaving on the table just purely because you're not willing to pivot or change your thought process on how you normally buy real estate. And some of that also has to do with how long somebody's actually been involved in real estate and has seen different interest rates. This is the highest variable rate we've had since 2001 for the Bank of Canada. Fixed rates, 4.8 to 5.25% for anybody that's been investing for 10 years or more, or buying real estate for 10 years or more. It's not unusual. It's not something that scares. But people who have only been buying in the last 6 to 8 years, they get afraid because they've not seen interest rates over 4%, and they've not had to understand how to work to get cash flow out of properties. And that's a big one, is you got to work to get cash flow now. It's not just going to fall in your lap.
Absolutely. So that statement that they made where investors become less able to leverage their capital due to the cumulative effects of these changes, and its downward trend, it's really, and what you're saying is really about strategizing what else you could do. And
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's if there's a will, there's a way. It's just a matter of what has to happen to make it happen. And if you find a good cash flowing property to buy, then it's a matter of, okay, how can, and you're looking for capital or you need to leverage capital, then it's looking at, okay, what do we have to do to leverage it to get the capital, right? Is it all sitting in equity? Is it sitting in cash? If it's sitting in cash, that's different than if, so there's a lot of factors that go into it. Interest rate is but one part of the investment property, although a big part, but there's ways to work around it, right? Maybe you need to use B lenders with a 35-year AM for a year or two until things settle out. That can help keep that cash flow intact, although the interest rate's higher, but it's all tax deductible. So there's different things that our discussions that I have with investors when we're talking about financing rental properties to be able to make that plan to come together, because there's people passing up good opportunities because it doesn't work with an A lender right now or something like that. That's the wrong reason to avoid a good opportunity. If you let a good opportunity pass you by, you may never see that opportunity again when interest rates do come down.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Keith, for saying that. Actually, if you could stay on the line one second here, Annalise, if you could go to the next slide. I actually wanted you to comment on the next one as well. And maybe you could get Dan in a second here. So this one was quite interesting, guys. Bank of Canada to hike rates, leave the door open for more. Well, they hiked rates today, didn't they, Keith?
Absolutely, yeah. So they went up a quarter point, which is what I anticipated they were going to do the end of the month here. We saw how the markets reacted today to that. The bond yield dropped back down below 2.9 or below 290 basis points today. The stock markets all reacted as well. I think all of them ended the day in some kind of a loss. And so we're starting to see the hints of recession. The US is now facing a debt ceiling crunch that they need to resolve within about a week or so. And so all these things are things to keep an eye on as to where they're going to go. And if the bond yields continue to stay down or get pushed down further, there's going to be opportunities that didn't exist, 2-3 months ago. So properties that you couldn't get to cash flow, but when the interest rates on a rental were 6.24, 6.29 in some cases, or 5.99, now they're going to be nearer to 5%. That property should probably deserve a revisit if it's still available, or if it went off the market and delisted, maybe that's when you need to be talking to your realtor and saying, hey, let's revisit this property and see if we can't get a deal together.
Awesome. Thanks, Keith. Hey, Dan, what's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much echo the same sentiment there as far as, where interest rates are going. Obviously, today's been a little bit of an interesting day with the Bank of Canada making that 25 basis point increase. And I think, this being the 8th one, the 7th one last year, and then the first one coming into this year, it's definitely spooked some people with the higher interest rates. I think with people that are in variable rate mortgages, you really have to pay attention to what this is doing for not only our cash flow, because when we look at cash flow on variable rate mortgages, to kind of put this into perspective, this additional interest rate hike on every $100,000 that someone's borrowing, that works out to about $15 extra they're going to have to pay in just interest. And then on the average mortgage across Canada, I think it's like $50 or so that you're paying. So it definitely changes things there. From a qualifying standpoint, if you're looking to either pull out equity, refinance, or purchase, this is going to affect your buying power too, because anyone that's got a rental portfolio, most of us kind of look at flexibility as being a big option when you're looking at a mortgage. And traditionally variable rate mortgages had the lower interest rate, but then also more flexibility on penalties if you're looking to get out of a mortgage, right? So a lot of people had or still have variable rate mortgages. And when we look at it as an overall portfolio, when we're debt servicing or qualifying someone and trying to add in an additional property, now we've got to debt service even more debt, right? So that that interest rate moves up. So to kind of give you an idea, on a HELOC, you're looking at it's crazy, 9.2% or so on a qualifying rate. I mean, that's traditional B territory, and we're there right now. I mean, I guess the silver lining in all of this is that basically in today's announcement, it looks like they're going to put the pause on these interest rate hikes. So we could be at the peak. I guess time will tell and see if we get our inflation under control. But yeah, some interesting things to kind of think about for sure when you're getting into investing and how you're going to package your portfolio together. So.
Awesome. Thanks for that feedback. Keith, do you have anything else to add there?
Yeah, it's just, it's so important. This is where, if you're someone who just typically thinks that you're going to go to your bank and get your financing, remember, your banks have the highest prepayment penalties of any of the lenders out there. And that's where a mortgage broker, having access to the mono lenders, credit unions, alternate A lenders, those can be a place where they don't have the high interest rate differential, discounted rate penalty policies and calculations. So if you do decide to break a 5-year term, you can limit some of that impact. So just that's where you have to have those discussions and find out what's different where. And if you don't know that, that's where a mortgage professional comes into play to help you understand that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Keith. Thanks, Keith and Dan, for commenting on that. Definitely, if you want to connect with any of the mortgage professionals that are associated with REWL, just connect with us, and then we'll point you in the right direction there. Going into the next slide, Annalisa. Thank you for putting the link there. Yeah, this one's surprising. I'm gonna actually bring Louis in for this one. Kind of surprised job growth in December, led by the construction industry. And if anyone knows construction, that's Louis, my man Louis here. So it's surprising that they are saying that the job industry is, especially in the construction, was leading it, and it's 0.5% increase. It looks like all the jobs are trending in that same fashion here. Now, this proves to be actually valuable for all the other graduates coming up next year or this year, as this year actually looks like it's going to be a year of turning things around in 2023. Louis, are you seeing that in the construction industry and trades and everything like that?
Yeah, and I believe the numbers are the way they show, because there's such a lack of manpower getting into the trades, and it's keeping all of the current trades very busy. They're trying to ramp up as much as they can to keep up with demand, which will not be possible. But an interesting thing, how the construction industry will correlate to the interest increases. It's going to stop certain projects. They may pause them indefinitely or for a short period of time to maybe complete a new financial analysis on the project to see if the feasibility is still there with increased rates. So that might take some pressure off of the labor force, but there's still a lot of other work going on outside of residential construction that is keeping a very big strain on the labor market in the construction industry. A lot of civil projects and commercial works that are going on throughout the country that you don't necessarily hear about in reports. When they report about construction, it's typically related to the residential sector, and that's just a fraction of the industry that has to be supplied with all of this labor force.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting when you see the job growth that's occurring, even in Alberta, it's crazy. There's so much the unemployment's going down. A lot of people are doing a lot better, but yeah, when it comes to prices, inflation, that's still at all-time high. So there's good news and bad news there, right? So it is what it is.
Yes.
Let's go to the next slide very quickly here. Just doing a time check. Yeah. Next slide, Annalisa, please. Will the foreign buyer ban impact? One back. Yeah, will the foreign buyer ban impact Vancouver? Probably not, and I tend to agree on this one. Probably not. They did bring in the foreign buyer tax 15% to calm things down, and it actually did calm things down. It's up to 20% now. It did calm things down in Vancouver. I have a ton of friends and family live there. I'm in Alberta, so BC is right there. And definitely when it comes to the foreign buyer tax, it has been an effective tool to calm things down. Makes it a bit more. I'm not going to say really, it is affordable, but it provides more stability for people within the province to actually purchase versus others. So definitely that is one that I think is a positive. If we go to the next slide on Ontario. So Ontario, this was an interesting article. So in stories, it says in the coming year, Ontario is going to expect a show of stronger than anticipated growth due to increased non-residential business investments and exports. So where they're saying Ontario is definitely going to be stronger in the growth area, non-residential business investments. When it comes to BC and Maritimes, they're expecting slower growth because of the housing markets and the effects of that. So while the outlook it says is relatively positive, economists advise caution as unexpected economic circumstances can arise in the future, which means they really don't know. It could be anything, right? So at the end of it, we're going to have sectors and provinces that are going to be growing. I think as a whole, we're going to be coming out of it in 2023. And I think it's going in the right direction, which is positive. So, and I believe that's the last slide for myself, and it's going to go back to Noran. Oh, there's one more. Alberta rents. Sorry, rents in Calgary secondary markets start a year with a dip, but don't be fooled. Calgary, Alberta, Edmonton, they're a hotbed. The amount of migration happening into the province right now, we see rents growing. There might be a slight dip in January, but year over year, we're trending in the right way, and it's actually going upward if you're actually investing in that province. So to me, it's strong. Calgary is a strong area to invest in. Edmonton as well. Alberta, it's just doing incredible. So definitely the rents are cheaper in Alberta than other places in the country. Definitely happy that other people are utilizing and moving in and helping our economy grow over there. So yeah, I think that's about it. Noran, back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Vincent.
Thank you.
You can, Annalisa, if you could stop sharing the slide deck and we'll just chat for a minute here. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And one thing I do want to re-presence us to, those articles that Vincent was going over, those aren't articles that he went out and found. That's what our proprietary AI found. So as a member, under your intelligence report, we actually have these articles, and every week there's new ones coming out that are important. And so you, as a member, you have access to that. It just keeps you on top of what is going on in the market right now. And again, I want to be really conscious of those people who are just joining us. If all of a sudden it feels like you're not quite sure what we're talking about, you'll get used to it. It comes with the territory of being an investor. One of the things that I've noticed, and we're going to close in about 2 minutes. I want to acknowledge that we are running behind. It's 8:37 Eastern Standard Time right now. So please give me 3 more minutes. One of the things that I've noticed in the last little while is you've seen large companies all of a sudden start to lay off. Microsoft laid off 10,000 people. This kind of stuff is happening. And that is to be expected. At the same time, for Canada, what we've got is immigration going up. We've had a huge year for immigration the last year since the borders have opened up again. At the same time, we just don't have enough stock of real estate house prices. So what does this mean? It means that really over the next year, for the average Joe that is sitting in front of the TV or listening to the news, they're going to be stressed about what's going on. But for those of us who really know what is going on, we know that within, whether it's now, 1 year, 3 years, or 5 years from now, the investment property you're buying today is going to be worth a whole lot more. It has to go that way because simply based on supply and demand. At least that's my personal thought. So, Louis, I know that you've got to run. You have a hard stop at 8:30 and you've acknowledged some more time. I'll let you have the last word here before I close it off.
Thanks, Duran. I think it was a great call this evening. Your, info regarding how to set up your systems for your real estate is a great way to kick off the year. A couple of updates from Vincent from coast to coast. I think we're gearing up for a positive 2023, but I think at the forefront has to be your mindset and how you're going to interpret it. We have to work harder now to find those opportunities, and we're here to provide value and information to you with all of our intel.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. I hope this has been helpful to you. If it has, before you leave, just throw something in the chat. Remember that thing I talked about being a treat? Well, if you give me some love, it'll make me feel good. How's that? And I know Vincent loves it as well. Louis, he's a tough nut, man. He doesn't care. He'll just do his thing. So anyway, great call. We will see you all in members. We will see you all in 2 weeks. If you're not a member, just go sign up. Info at Real Estate Wealth Lab. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks.